He finally said no to his sister and his mom lost it. But his pregnant wife needed him to choose. Imagine finding out your mom would rather skip your wedding than see your sister excluded from it. Not because your sister deserved to be there. Not because she had ever shown up for you. But because keeping the peace mattered more than you did. He let it go that day. He swallowed it down the way you do when you know that making a scene will only give the other person ammunition. He let her walk in, scowl visible in every photo, that tight expression that radiates contempt without saying a single word, and he said nothing. He stood at the altar, exchanged vows with the person he loved most, and somewhere in the background of those wedding photos was his sister, wearing her feelings on her face for anyone who looked closely enough to see. He absorbed it. He got through the day. But a baby shower is a different kind of moment entirely, and this time he was done swallowing it. Our guy had spent years being the black sheep of his family, the kid who took longer to figure things out, the brother who got jailed once at 19 and never quite lived it down. That kind of label has a way of calcifying in a family. It gets repeated at holiday dinners and whispered between cousins and pulled out whenever someone needs a cautionary tale, and over time it stops being a description and starts being a sentence. He carried that weight for years, that invisible mark that said he was the one who could not quite get it together. But by the time this story picks up, he is 34 years old, married to a woman he loves, homeowner, hard worker, first child on the way, and genuinely thriving. He had put in the quiet, unglamorous work of actually building a life, the kind of work that does not come with an announcement or a celebration. It just shows up in mortgage payments made on time and weekends spent fixing things and going to bed knowing the people you love are safe. He became, by any honest measure, someone to be proud of. The version of him his sister decided to freeze in place, that rebellious teenager who stayed out too late and thought he knew everything, that person has not existed for nearly 2 decades. And yet his sister never updated the picture. She kept the old file and refused to open a new one. The sister had made her feelings known in ways that went far beyond garden-variety sibling tension. She had openly admitted, on more than one occasion, that she did not like his wife. Not in the heat of a fight, not in a moment she later walked back, but clearly and repeatedly, with the calm certainty of someone who had decided and closed the case. And when pressed on why, the reason came down to race. His wife is white. They are Hispanic. And apparently that was enough for the sister to write her off entirely, not in private, not in a moment of weakness, but openly and repeatedly. That is not a rough patch. That is a character reveal. And still he tried. Over the span of 7 years he reached out, asked her to the table, tried to address the rift directly. 7 years is not a moment of patience, it is a sustained and deliberate effort that most people would have abandoned after 2. He wanted the kind of sibling relationship his wife had with her own brother. Close, warm, actually present, the kind where someone shows up at your door with food when things get hard, the kind where the phone calls are not just obligatory check-ins but genuine conversations. He watched that dynamic from the outside and he wanted it for himself. Every single attempt went nowhere. She redirected every conversation into a list of grievances about the past. She threw around whataboutisms and deflections, pivoting whenever the discussion got too close to something real. She was not interested in moving forward because the past was the only place where she held the advantage. As long as she could keep him stuck in the identity of the screw-up little brother, she did not have to reckon with who he had actually become. The wife even tried. She met the sister at a coffee shop before the wedding, genuine olive branch in hand, expressing clearly that she wanted all of them to get along, that she longed for a real relationship with her. Picture that for a second. She drove to that coffee shop, probably got there early, probably ordered something and sat there with her hands wrapped around a warm cup trying to figure out what to say to a woman who had every reason to be cold to her. She came in good faith, no agenda, just a genuine desire to close the distance. And the sister sat across from her, in that ordinary, fluorescent-lit, totally public setting, and said plainly that she was not the kind of person she would choose to spend time with, that she was uncomfortable around her, and that she did not think they could ever get along. She said that to his wife's face. At a coffee shop. While his wife was trying to build a bridge. How does a person hear that and still think the sister deserves a front row seat at every major life event? What logic gets you there? What version of fairness says that a person who sits down across from your wife at a coffee shop and tells her she is not worth knowing should still get an engraved invitation to your baby shower? There is no version of that math that works. Then came the pregnancy. 6 months in. No acknowledgement. Not a text, not a call, not a single word recognizing that her brother and his wife were about to become parents for the first time. 6 months is a long time to maintain that level of deliberate silence. It is long enough to see the news, process it, sit with it, and still actively choose to say nothing. Not a congratulations, not even a cold and perfunctory one, nothing. Every week that passed without a single word was its own small decision, a daily renewal of the choice to treat this milestone as if it did not exist. If a stranger on the street ignored you that completely, you would simply move on. But because this person shares your last name and your childhood home, suddenly the social rules change and you are expected to keep extending grace indefinitely. His mom started asking about the baby shower invitation and he had already made up his mind. He was not inviting his sister. He thought about what that day was supposed to feel like, people who actually loved his wife filling a room, laughing too loud, passing around ridiculous amounts of gifts, his wife sitting at the center of it all glowing and happy and finally in a space where no one was looking at her sideways or making her feel like she did not belong there. He did not want that negative, performative, scowling energy anywhere near his pregnant wife during what was supposed to be a celebration of new life. And for the first time he did not feel guilty about it. He felt certain. The mom, predictably, pushed back. Because this is a woman who has her own unresolved pain around family estrangement. She lost contact with her own siblings, knows firsthand what it feels like when those relationships go cold and stay that way, knows the particular ache of reaching a milestone and realizing there is a whole branch of your family that simply is not there. Her father had just died. She was in the thick of fresh grief, the kind that makes you want to pull everyone you love closer, that makes the idea of any further fracture feel physically unbearable. She was watching her 2 kids be strangers to each other and it was breaking her heart in a way that probably felt unbearable to sit with. She wanted to fix it. That impulse makes complete sense. That part is understandable. Her pain is real. But pain does not give you the right to emotionally coerce your adult children into pretending everything is fine for the sake of family photos. What she was doing, even with love underneath it, was refusing to respect his experience. She was prioritizing the appearance of unity over the reality of harm. She showed him that at the wedding when she threatened not to attend unless the sister was invited. Stop and sit with that for a moment. His wedding. One of the most significant days of his life. And his mother looked him in the eye and told him she might not come unless the person who had openly disrespected his wife got an invitation. That was not a mother advocating for peace. That was a mother using her own attendance as a bargaining chip to override her son's boundaries around his own wedding. He talked it out. Hours on the phone with both parents. Long conversations with his wife, late at night probably, the house quiet around them, working through all the angles together. Back and forth and back again, the same ground covered from every direction, trying to figure out what the right thing was and whether the right thing and the kind thing were even the same thing in this situation. And his wife, who had every right to be furious, came in with a clear head and said something that cut through everything. She pointed out that it was only the mom pushing for this. They did not actually know whether the sister even wanted an invitation. So instead of going through the whole dramatic back and forth, she suggested they just call her and ask. So they did. His wife called from her phone, cheerful voice, warm message, left a voicemail saying they wanted her there and asked if she should plan on coming. Think about what it took to make that call. After everything. After the coffee shop, after the years of silence, after the 6 months of ignored pregnancy news. His wife picked up her phone and recorded herself being kind and open and genuine, because she is the kind of person who would rather do the hard thing right than avoid it entirely. Direct, sincere, no games. The sister sent the call to voicemail after 2 rings. 2 rings. Not a missed call. Not a phone left sitting across the room on silent. 2 rings is a decision. It is a screen lighting up, a name appearing, and a thumb moving deliberately to decline it. She saw who was calling. She knew what it was probably about. And she chose, in real time, with full awareness, to press that button and send it away. There has been no text back. No call. No response of any kind. And that right there is the most honest thing she has ever communicated. Not with words, because she chose not to use any. But with silence. With a double tap on the decline button. All those years of deflection and grievance lists and redirected conversations, and in the end the clearest statement she ever made was a phone call she refused to answer. She did not need to say she did not want to come. She said it by saying nothing at all, and the message could not have been more complete. That is who she is and how she feels, and at least now there is no ambiguity left. He did not blow up the family. The family was already fractured. It had been fracturing quietly for years, in all those unreturned calls and side comments and loaded silences at Christmas dinners. The cracks were there long before he decided to stop filling them in with his own exhausted hands. He just stopped pretending it was not broken. And there is something quietly courageous about that, about finally letting a thing be what it actually is instead of performing a polished version of it for everyone else's comfort and benefit. Let me just say something about this mom for a second, because I cannot move on without it. She watched her daughter treat her son poorly for years. She saw the racism directed at her daughter-in-law, heard it expressed plainly, understood what it meant. She was in those wedding photos where the sister was scowling in the background, and she can see that same expression every time she looks at the album. She watched her son try to repair things again and again, watched his wife extend more grace than most people would have lasted through, watched all of it happen in real time, right in front of her. She had all the information. She knew what her daughter had said and done and chosen. And her response to all of it was to pressure her son into continuing to include her, as though the problem was his exclusion and not the years of behavior that led to it. At some point, protecting the image of a whole family becomes more destructive than just letting the image crack. His verdict is the right one, and here is why it is not even close. He gave this sister 7 years of attempts. His wife gave her a face-to-face conversation. They gave her a voicemail, kind and open, with an explicit invitation. She declined every single one. You do not get to ghost a pregnancy, openly reject someone's spouse on racial grounds, refuse every attempt at reconciliation for the better part of a decade, and then act wounded when the invitation stops coming. The sequence of events matters. He did not start with exclusion. He ended there, after exhausting every other option. His wife and daughter come first. Full stop. Not because family does not matter, but because the people who actively show up in your life, who pick up the phone, who drive 2 hours on weekends, who try at coffee shops and leave cheerful voicemails, those are the ones who have earned a seat at the table. The sister chose her seat long ago. She just decided she wanted to change her mind the moment she was no longer invited to pull it up. The chapter is written now. He protected his family. He made the call. He left the door cracked with that voicemail and she shut it herself. Whatever happens next in that family dynamic is not on him. He has a baby coming and a wife who has his back and a home they built together. That is the life. That is the one that matters. He should walk into that baby shower with his head high and not look back. My husband says I cannot switch gyms and now I am having panic attacks just trying to work out. She started leaving her workouts early just to get out of the building faster. Not slipping out quietly after a full session, but cutting things short mid-set, mid-rep, mid-moment, just to feel the cool air outside and stop feeling like the room was swallowing her whole. Think about that for a second. This is someone who loves the gym. Who bonded with her husband over fitness. Who had made it a real and meaningful part of her life for years. And now the place they go together was making her want to escape. That detail alone should tell you everything you need to know about where this story is going. She and her husband had built their relationship partly around working out together, which is genuinely a wonderful thing to share with a partner. There is something special about that kind of bond, where you push each other, show up for each other, and grow stronger side by side in a very literal sense. When they moved, they found a new gym and it seemed like the kind of place that had everything. Great equipment, plenty of it, no waiting around, the kind of setup that gets your husband doing a happy dance in the parking lot. He loved it from day one and started seeing real results, feeling energized, motivated, like he had found his place. For him, this gym was the answer. It checked every box. It gave him exactly what he was looking for and then some. For her, it was a different story entirely. The music was so loud that even with noise-canceling headphones cranked to full blast it was still breaking through. Think about what that actually means. Those headphones are specifically designed to block the world out, to create a personal bubble of silence in even the noisiest environments. And it was still not enough. The sound was seeping in anyway, relentless and inescapable, wrapping around her concentration and pulling it apart. The gym floor was so packed with equipment that navigating it meant constantly bumping into things and people, squeezing through gaps that were never quite wide enough, always aware of how little room there was between her and the next person. For someone who needs space to focus and breathe, who needs to feel settled and grounded in her body before she can do anything demanding with it, that kind of environment is genuinely exhausting before you even lift a single weight. She had found a small corner of relief in the powerlifting area. It was off to the side, quieter, less congested, the kind of pocket of space where she could actually settle into her workout and be present. She could hear herself think there. She could move without apologizing. She could breathe without feeling like the walls were inching closer. That corner became her anchor, the one reason she could still walk through the front door and mean it. But then the gym added more equipment to that section too, and the last refuge she had found was gone. The one place that felt manageable became just as overwhelming as everywhere else, and there was nowhere left in the building that felt safe. And here is what started happening as a result. She was cutting workouts short. She was feeling reluctant to even go. She was skipping sessions entirely, sitting with that low hum of guilt that comes when something you love starts to feel like a source of dread instead of joy. She was leaving early not because she was tired, but because being inside that building had started to feel unbearable, and getting out was the only relief available. For someone who has made fitness a consistent part of her life, someone who genuinely loves to work out and has drawn real meaning from it, that is a significant sign that something is genuinely wrong. This was not her being picky or dramatic. Her body and her mind were telling her clearly and repeatedly, in the most direct language available, that this environment was not working for her. She talked to her husband about it honestly. She sat down with him and opened up about what she had been experiencing, how much she had been dreading going, how much worse it had been getting, how she had lost the one corner that made it bearable. She told him what she was feeling and that she wanted to get a membership somewhere else, somewhere she could actually focus and finish her workouts the way she used to. And critically, she was not asking him to leave his gym. She made that very clear. She was not issuing an ultimatum or demanding they do everything together on her terms. She just wanted to go somewhere that worked for her, because this place was actively interfering with her goals and her well-being. His response was to push back. He said he loved working out with her and did not want them to be at different gyms. He asked her to try to overcome her feelings, to push through, to find some creative solution that kept them at the same location. There was love underneath that response, she could probably feel it, but there was also something else underneath it. A kind of refusal to fully absorb what she was telling him. She even came up with one, offering to get a dual membership so he could still come to the current gym most of the time and join her at the new one whenever he wanted. She handed him a solution on a plate. He turned that down too. Now here is where I have to stop and just say what I am thinking out loud. She is having panic attacks. Not just bad feelings. Not just mild discomfort. Panic attacks. At the gym. Her heart racing, her chest tightening, her body flooding with signals that she needed to get out right now, and she was still showing up, still trying, still hoping it would somehow be different this time. And she is still in a conversation about whether she is allowed to go somewhere else. I do not understand how that is even still a debate. Sensory overload is a real and documented thing. The combination of overwhelming noise, crowded spaces, no room to breathe or move, and zero refuge anywhere in the building can push someone's nervous system past its limit. That is not weakness. That is not something you can just decide to muscle through with the right mindset. When your body physically shuts down and goes into a panic response, the environment is not working for you. It is working against you. Her husband is coming at this from a place of love, which is clear, but what he is asking her to do is keep returning to a place that is triggering a genuine physical stress response because he prefers working out together at one specific location. He is weighting his preference against her physical and mental health, and he is choosing his preference. That is the dynamic underneath the niceness. And she needs to name it clearly, even if only to herself, before she decides what to do next. She already proposed a solution that was genuinely generous. He can keep his gym. She joins a different one. He can come to hers whenever he feels like it. Nobody loses the relationship or the habit of working out together. It just becomes more flexible. That is a compromise. What he is asking for, which is for her to keep suffering through panic attacks in a building she dreads, is not a compromise. That is asking her to sacrifice her health for his comfort. And she does not owe him that. She does not owe anyone her mental health as the price of keeping the peace. Look, relationships require accommodation. Of course they do. There are 100 decisions in a partnership where you adjust for the other person because the relationship matters more than the preference. But this is not a preference. This is a panic attack. This is her leaving mid-workout because her body hit a wall. There is a line between compromise and self-abandonment, and she has been standing on the wrong side of it long enough. Here is the verdict, and it is a clear one. She should sign up at the other gym. Not despite her husband's feelings, but in full honesty with them. She can tell him directly that she loves working out with him, that she values what they built together, and that she wants to keep building it, but that she cannot keep going to a place that is affecting her mental health this severely. A partner who loves you does not ask you to keep walking into situations that trigger panic attacks because it is more convenient for them. If he hears that and still cannot get there, that is a conversation worth having, because the gym is not actually the issue at that point. The issue is whether he is able to take her needs seriously when they inconvenience him. And that is a much bigger thing than a gym membership. She should go. Sign up today. Walk in and breathe. That is what she deserves. Which story hit harder for you? Drop it in the comments below, and if you made it this far, a like and subscribe would genuinely mean a lot.